In fourth place, I've put the Merkel battle right at the end of Act 2. I know many people dread this battle and at times perhaps over prepare. It's got such a reputation that I frequently see people give advice that you should just use Baromancy because it's so hard. I'm paraphrasing there, but that's what it comes down to. However, with just a bit of prior knowledge, this fight is way more than manageable, which could actually be said about every encounter in the game anyway. So why have I put it in this list? And that's because this fight is the culmination of Act 2, what we've been working towards. Also, having a giant avatar of a god just appear halfway through the fight is pretty cool, and then you get to smack that avatar back down into the hole from whence it came. Regarding the mechanics of the fight, I like that unless you've prepared to kill Merkel in 1 or 2 rounds, you have other things to do aside from just beating up the boss. There are other ways of dealing with this bony boss as well, such as using darkness or disarming it, so you're not left with only a single option on how to deal with this boss. We can also have an ally help out, although I will admit that at times she contributes next to nothing, yet in other runs she dishes out the damage like she ought to. And this is a boss battle with extra enemies in there. We've got intellect devourers, we've got mind flayers, we've got more bones, skeletons running around. So it's really, you've got to think a little bit hard about how to manage all of this. Overall, I find it quite hard not to like a big boss battle that helps decide the course of the future of the Sword Coast. In third place, I'm putting the Thorms as a group. Just like with my previous video, I'm bending the title of this video a bit because, do you know what, there aren't any real rules here. During Act 2 we come across 3 different Thorms, namely Thistlebold, Malice and Garangoth, all of which can end up in a fight. The reason I put these fights together isn't because of the fact that they're all Thorms, but they are all boss fights that have other ways out of them. You also come across them pretty much at the same place in Act 2. Once you can access one of them, you can access all of them. What makes this a bit different is that all the fights can be entirely avoided if you have a silver tongue and talk your way through them. I feel like the fact that some random adventurer can come along and literally talk some enemies into killing themselves shows just how deranged all 3 of them are in the first place. Personally, I rarely choose the options to talk my way past them nowadays, but I am very happy that we have the choice to do so. I also like that with Thistlebold in particular. There are other skills that you can use aside from the charisma based ones to make him drink too much and then just off himself. Aside from that, I like that each of them is unique and that there is something else going on during the fights, even if it's just something small. There were some comments in my Act 1 video saying that they didn't like fights with a gimmick, so I wouldn't be surprised if the same sorts of people disagreed with me in putting these 3 here. I find Thistlebold kind of a bit annoying, the most annoying, because it seems like it goes on for much longer than the other 2 due to his mechanics. Garangoth is kind of funny in a way, because she can hit you unexpectedly hard the first time, but as I mentioned earlier, having knowledge of the fight lets you easily prepare against the attack that does more damage to you when you have more gold. Going on to Malice, I find his fight kind of maybe a little bit more boring in the sense that it doesn't feel very different from most other fights, since his thing is pretty much just reviving his nurses and then potentially helping him out. However, I like how, I'm going to use the word again, deranged Malice is, and how seemingly receptive he is to your logical suggestions of letting his nurses practice on each other, for example. In second place, I'm putting the defense of the portal into the Shadowfell when Halsin goes into the Shadowfell and you have to defend the portal while he goes in there and does his thing. And this is here because this is one of the very few fights in Act 2 where there is an additional pressure aside from the usual thing of trying not to die. There are a variety of enemies and they're all out to get that portal. During the fight, you will learn the value of mass control and mass damage since there are so many enemies to take care of. Having an assassin Gloomstalker is good and all when you're setting up battles and fighting just a few enemies, but when you start to have 10 to 20 enemies around, it's just not possible to kind of keep up with killing all of them with just targeting them one at a time. The usefulness of area of effect spells and abilities cannot be overstated for this fight, and even lower level spells such as Spike Growth can have a large impact on this battle. The feeling of flinging out a fireball against 5 to 10 enemies never gets old. Or setting up a wall of fire that deals out hundreds of damage over the course of a few rounds makes me feel like some sort of tactical genius. And I think I kind of like the idea of defending something, because in my previous video for the Act 1 fights, my number 1 fight was actually defending the Grove, and I think I've just loved that feeling of fending people off, something important to take care of. And kind of linked to that, aside from the fight itself, the reason for the fight is a good one that helps recover the Shadow Curse land eventually if all goes well. It feels good to fight for a reason, aside from the fact that there are some NPCs around who happen to be hostile because they've just been lost to the Shadow Curse, which is what quite a bit of Act 2 starts to feel like in my opinion. And on to my number 1 pick, which is Moonrise Towers. Not the time that you get there first time and you go and infiltrate Moonrise Towers. No, it's the attack on Moonrise Towers. And one of the good things about this is that this can be a big set piece for you if you want. Or, if you want to, you can clear it ahead of time, so that when it's finally time to knock on the door, there are barely any cultists left inside to resist you and the Harpers that you're with. I like being part of a larger battle with allies, even if they're not the most effective. And again, this is very similar to what I picked in Act 1. The number 1 pick was when we're defending the Grove and we've got all these people helping us out. I'm glad that they're here when we storm Moonrise Towers, because they get to soak up some extra attacks and damage, which makes me feel a little bit guilty, but not guilty enough that I won't use them. Inside the towers, there are a variety of enemies, such as paladins, clerics, archers, potentially gnolls, and some other spellcasters out there. This makes the fight feel a bit more interesting because you need to think about, for example, who to take out first and what abilities or spells will work best on which enemies, and this leads to like the constantly changing battlefield. Then there is the basement, which is like so easy to miss, and I literally only found out about this after well over 1,000 hours, maybe 2,000 hours into the game. And not only that, there are a bunch of gargoyles on the outside of the tower towards the top which can be found, and I'd like that exploration is rewarded. And linked to that, and clearing the tower out ahead of time, you can even fly or jump your way up to the very top of the tower and take out all of the additional enemies that are there when you fight Ketheric at the top of the tower. You can't, well, you can fight him, but you can't kill him because he is invulnerable at that point. But you can really clear out the tower ahead of time if you make that your purpose. Since there are some traders in the tower, there's also some half-decent loot to pick up, and there's loads of tadpoles to consume if that's your type of thing. And a bit like with the defense of the portal, there's quite a lot of enemies here, especially if you don't clear out any of the towers ahead of time. So your big area of effect abilities and spells really have that chance to shine, which makes my simple brain happy because there are lots of numbers on the screen, or lots of enemies not doing anything on the screen because they're all now held. Compared to Act 1, I do find that Act 2 fights a little bit disappointing overall, as most of them feel like all you need to do is just kill everything. It's not to say that they're all bad or anything, but fighting the 20th Shadow Cursed humanoid or evil sentient plant doesn't give me much need to do things differently from the previous fights with the same enemies. I think perhaps I can give an honourable mention to the Gauntlet of Shah because it's got like various fights and a variety of enemies, and it does kind of spicing things up. It is a little bit different. So you let me know your favourite fights from Act 2, which ones do you agree with me and which ones do you disagree, and quite importantly, tell me why. So thank you for making it this far, and to all the members of my channel, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one.